The letter that never needed to arrive. When love began to speak without words. The world thought the story had ended after the confession. But truth never ends. It only changes shape. Seoul was waking up again, rain sliding down glass towers, neon lights fading into daylight. Yet somewhere beyond the noise of traffic and the hum of industry, the air felt different. Like something sacred was about to be written. Because that morning, one envelope appeared. No logo. No sender. No signature. Just 5 words written in silver ink. For the one who waited. It was delivered to a post office box registered under an old stage name. Jungkook opened it with trembling hands. Inside, only a single sheet of paper. Blank except for one faint line at the bottom. Some truths don't need ink. And in that silence, Jungkook smiled. Because he knew who had written it. For months they had been shadows, no more live streams, no leaked demos, no cryptic billboards. The world called it the quiet era. But for those who listened closely, the quiet was louder than ever. In every subway screen reflection, every half-whispered lyric, every empty stage, there was still that invisible pulse, stay awake. The fire. The confession. But something was still missing. Not a song. Not a performance. A closure that refused to arrive. Then, at 3:17 a.m. one morning, something happened. An unlisted YouTube link began spreading through fan groups. No title, no thumbnail, just a timestamp and a single emoji, fire envelope. When people clicked, the screen stayed black for 20 seconds. Then the faint sound of rain. And a voice, soft, unguarded, trembling. If you're hearing this, don't look for me in the music anymore. Look for me in the silence between notes. Jungkook. Then another voice, lower, familiar, almost like an echo that had been waiting too long to return. And if you ever wonder if I waited, I did. Taehyung. The screen faded to white. Then text appeared, handwritten across the screen. The letter that never needed to arrive. No official channel. No traceable upload. But within hours it had reached every corner of the internet. ARMY didn't share it like a video, they shared it like a secret. Like something you only show to those who understand what love costs in a world built on silence. News broke. HYBE denied involvement. Korean portals crashed. BBC called it a haunting farewell. CNN wrote, BTS members redefine intimacy in the age of exposure. But the world already knew it wasn't farewell. It was transformation. Because 1 week later in Tokyo, a billboard lit up again. This time it didn't say stay awake. It didn't say the fire. It simply displayed a heartbeat animation, 2 pulses intertwining, slowing, syncing, until they became one line. Then a single word appeared. Home. No hashtags. No QR code. Just that. In every language, home means something different. But for ARMY it meant one thing. The story wasn't over. It had just come full circle. Journalists speculated. Was Home a new song? A hidden message? Some said it was part of a secret project, the final piece of the trilogy. Others believed it was an unsent love letter, finally finding its way through the noise. But those who knew simply smiled. Because they remembered what Taehyung once said in a concert years ago. Home isn't a place. It's the person who makes you feel safe. And somewhere in the quiet corner of Seoul, away from cameras and chaos, Jungkook was writing again, pen scratching softly against paper. No lyrics. No melody. Just words. Maybe we were never meant to explain ourselves. Maybe all we ever needed was to be understood. When Taehyung walked in, Jungkook didn't hide the paper. He just handed it over wordlessly. Taehyung read it once, twice, and then folded it neatly, sliding it into his pocket. You still write letters? He asked softly. Only the ones that never need to arrive, Jungkook replied. And outside the rain stopped. Not because the storm had passed, but because it had become music again. That was how the letter was born, not as a song but as a moment that refused to fade. No studio, no labels, no sponsors. Just truth, written on paper, sealed in silence. Fans called it the quiet revolution. Because after all the noise, all the leaks, all the fire, this was the calm after the storm. A peace that didn't come from answers, but from finally learning to stop asking. And so the timeline changed again. Dodger, the spark. Stay awake, the promise. The fire, the rebellion. The confession, the truth. The letter, the homecoming. Not an ending, but a return. Because sometimes, love doesn't need to be shouted across stadiums or written into headlines. Sometimes it only needs to be whispered between two souls who finally stopped running. And the world for once fell silent, not out of fear but out of respect. Because even silence knows when it's hearing something sacred. The stage they never left. When absence became the loudest performance. The world thought they had vanished. After the letter, there were no more leaks, no more whispers, no more traces on timelines or billboards. The industry moved on as it always does, hungry for the next noise, the next face, the next headline. But some silences don't mean absence. Some silences are rehearsals. It began quietly, an unannounced rehearsal booking at a small studio in Itaewon. The reservation name, Two Shadows. No entourage. No cameras. Just a piano, a mic, and a room that still remembered the sound of unspoken dreams. The staff said they barely spoke. Jungkook adjusted the mic. Taehyung tuned the piano. Then they began, not with Stay Awake or The Fire, but something new. A melody so soft it felt like breathing. You called it silence, Jungkook sang. But I heard you every time, Taehyung replied. It wasn't a song, they were building a bridge. Between then and now. Between chaos and calm. Outside, the world slept, but the air inside that room trembled. Because every note carried the weight of everything they could never say in public. Every pause was a confession disguised as rhythm. And somewhere deep inside that music, a secret took shape. 2 days later at dawn, the digital billboards of Seoul flickered again. No logos. No faces. Just a line in handwritten font. The stage they never left, midnight KST. At midnight sharp, an unlisted live stream appeared. No announcement, no marketing. The screen was dark for the first few seconds, then a light came on. A small, empty theater. 2 microphones. And footsteps approaching. Jungkook. Taehyung. No dancers, no stylists, no background screens, just them. Dressed in black, standing side by side. The silence felt sacred. Then Jungkook whispered. You thought we left. But love doesn't clock out. A deep inhale. A soft piano chord. Then they began to sing, slow, haunting, raw. The lyrics sounded like fragments of all their previous songs woven into one. You told us to hide, Jungkook sang. We learned to shine in the dark, Taehyung answered. You said we were gone, Jungkook continued. But you were still singing our names, Taehyung finished. The screen glitched mid-performance as if someone tried to pull it down, but the stream kept going. Thousands of fans joined within seconds, then millions. Comments flooded in from every language imaginable. They're back. This is history. The silence was never empty, it was waiting. Halfway through, the lights dimmed again. A heartbeat echoed through the speakers. Then Taehyung spoke, not singing now but speaking the way prophets speak to fire. They said we lost the stage. But the stage was never lights or walls or applause. The stage was always the space between two hearts that still dare to sing. Jungkook looked at him, eyes shining. Then let's never leave it again. The music swelled, soft but endless, like a tide returning home. When the live stream ended, there were no credits. No label watermark. No donation links. Only one line remained on the black screen. We never left. We just learned to return differently. Within an hour, #the stage they never left was trending worldwide. YouTube's algorithm couldn't even categorize it. Was it a live performance? A documentary? A protest? Or something the internet had no word for yet? CNN called it a digital resurrection. BBC wrote, 2 artists turned silence into a stage. But ARMY didn't need definitions. They simply called it what it was. Homecoming. In Seoul, reporters flooded HYBE's gates. Executives refused to comment. But one anonymous insider leaked a note from an internal meeting. They were never supposed to perform again, not like that. But maybe we were wrong to think we could script silence. And outside, across the world, fans gathered again, not in stadiums but in living rooms, cafes, street corners, holding phones glowing like candles. Some played the stream on repeat. Some cried. Some simply sat in awe, realizing they had just witnessed art unfiltered by fear. Meanwhile, in a quiet seaside town hours away from Seoul, a small recording studio's light still burned past midnight. Inside, Taehyung was on the piano, Jungkook sitting cross-legged on the floor, sketching song titles on scraps of paper. "You think they'll understand this one?" Jungkook asked, smiling. "They already do," Taehyung replied. "They always did." He handed Jungkook a note. On it, 3 words. "Until we return." They both laughed softly. Not because it was a promise, but because it was a certainty. And somewhere on a forgotten hard drive, the final track began to take form. Not for release. Not for charts. But for those who stayed through every silence. It was called Echo. The melody began like a whisper and ended like a sunrise, slow, tender, infinite. Even when you think we're gone, we're the echo that never dies. When it finally leaked weeks later, fans didn't cry. They smiled because it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the sound of forever.